All right, today we're jumping into a really dramatic and honestly fascinating part of the Bible, Jeremiah chapters 30 and 31. This is a story about how a moment of absolute total collapse becomes the very place where an unbelievable promise of hope is born. So let's get into it.
But first, to really get this, I want you to just imagine something for a second. Ask yourself this: what if your world was visibly, undeniably falling apart? I'm not talking about a bad day. I mean a total systemic collapse. The walls are caving in, the roof is, literally on fire. That's the world we're about to step into.
You see, to really understand just how big this promise of hope is, we have to walk through the nightmare first. We have to feel the weight of it. Because if we skip past the grim reality, the hope at the end it doesn't mean anything.
So let's paint the picture. The setting is the Babylonian captivity. The Babylonian Empire is the undisputed superpower. Think of them as the regional hegemon. They've just crushed Judah, and its citizens are being ripped from their homes and dragged off into exile. This isn't just a political defeat. The entire floor of their society has just dropped out from under them.
And what's really interesting here is that this whole catastrophe is happening on this kind of split screen. On one side, you've got the prophet Jeremiah, who's still there, back in the actual rubble of Jerusalem, dealing with starvation and devastation. And then, at the very same time, you've got the prophet Ezekiel, who's already in Babylon with the first wave of exiles, ministering to them from inside the belly of the beast.
Now, when you've lost everything, you become incredibly vulnerable, right? You're desperate for any lifeline. And this makes you a perfect target for anyone peddling a quick fix, which brings us to the very real danger of false hope.
And you can see this clash of messages so clearly here. On one side, you have Jeremiah, who's basically saying, you have to face how bad this is. And on the other, this guy named Shemaiah shows up selling a fantasy. He's that ancient voice of toxic positivity, just saying, hey, don't worry, this is just a blip, everything's gonna be fine. Now you might think, what's the big deal? He's just trying to be optimistic. But the text treats this with extreme seriousness. Shemaiah's message is literally labeled rebellion. And why? Because it wasn't just an opinion. It was a lie designed to keep people comfortable, to encourage them to live in a delusion instead of confronting their actual desperate situation. Okay, think of it this way. Imagine you get a devastating terminal diagnosis from a real doctor. Then, this other quack doctor, we'll call him Dr. Shemaiah, comes along and hands you some sugar pills and says, you'll be fine. The danger isn't just that the sugar pills don't work. The real danger is they keep you from getting the aggressive treatment you actually need to survive. That's what false hope does.
And this is the real diagnosis from God in Jeremiah 30. It is absolutely unsparing. Words like incurable, severe, no healing. This establishes a baseline of total helplessness. This is rock bottom, full stop. The wound is declared incurable to make one thing crystal clear. You can't fix this yourselves.
But right in the middle of that dark terminal diagnosis, the text gives you whiplash. It makes this sudden jarring pivot from you are completely and totally doomed to an impossible promise of healing. Yeah, just as that hopelessness hits its absolute peak, God declares that he will break the yoke from their neck and burst their bonds. The whole narrative flips from total subjugation to a promise of absolute liberation. And the key thing here is that this isn't a slow recovery. It's a sudden, divine rescue. So how does this all play out? Well, prophecy often works like you're looking at a mountain range. You see two peaks. The first peak, the one closest to you that Jeremiah's audience could see, was the promise of a literal, historical return from Babylon. And that happened. God did break that immediate yoke. But then there's the far peak, way off in the distance, separated by a vast valley of time. The text promises that they will one day serve David their king. Now obviously King David had been dead for centuries, so this isn't about bringing him back. David here is being used as a royal title, and it's pointing to a future messianic king, the son of David, who's going to bring the final, ultimate restoration.
As we move into chapter 31, it's like the camera lens zooms way in. We shift from this huge geopolitical promise to something deeply, deeply personal. The foundation of this new era isn't about borders on a map. It's about a fundamental change inside the human heart.
And this new era starts by just dismantling an old excuse. There was this proverb going around to the exile camps: the fathers have eaten sour grapes and the children's teeth are set on edge. It was the ultimate ancient blame game, a poetic way of saying, Hey, we're only in this mess because our ancestors totally blew it.
But God just comes in and definitively retires this proverb. It's over. Done. He says from now on, we're in an era of strict individual accountability. The person who eats the sour grapes is the one whose teeth will be set on edge. The blame game is officially canceled.
But, individual accountability is kinda terrifying if people are fundamentally flawed. So God's solution isn't just a new rule book, it's a whole new covenant. Think of it like a massive technology upgrade. The old operating system, the law written on stone tablets, it kept crashing because of user error. So in this new covenant, God doesn't just send a software patch, he installs an entirely new OS directly onto the hardware. He's going to write his law on their hearts.
And the result of this internal transformation is, well, it's revolutionary. No longer will people need a priest or some other middleman to know God. That knowledge becomes intrinsic, part of who they are. And this finally addresses the root cause of that incurable wound. It all leads to total, absolute forgiveness. Just listen to this line. Their sin I will remember no more.
Now, this is a massive, almost unbelievable promise. So to back it all up, God provides what you can only really describe as a cosmic guarantee.
God basically tells the people, hey, look at the physical universe around you. The sun coming up every day, the fixed patterns of the moon and stars, the ocean waves. In this context, they're not just nature. They become daily, visible proofs of how reliable his promises are. He's saying this new covenant is as certain and as permanent as gravity itself.
And it all builds to this one final, just breathtaking image to seal the deal. God declares that only if the heavens above can be measured, or the foundations of the earth can be fully searched out, only then will he ever cast off his people. I mean, just let that scale sink in for a moment.
Even with all our incredible science, the universe remains fundamentally, well, immeasurable. So here's a final thought to leave you with. Could it be that the sheer, staggering, mind-bending endlessness of the cosmos is meant to be a daily, physical reminder of a limitless, immeasurable, and everlasting love? Is the night sky itself a promise, written in the dark,